Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Thursday, July 5th, 2018. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Taking a look at our solar conditions. Our solar wind speeds are at 440.4 kilometers per second with a density of 6.1 that has since reduced from larger numbers from earlier today in the double digits. Sun is still blank. This will make now 8 days in a row, giving us 95 days without sunspots in 2018. And taking a look at our KP indices, we were at storm conditions and we have since dropped down to a KP of 4, and we should see, we don't expect any more increases of the KP indices for tonight as well. And take a look at the SDO. There are no large organized coronal holes on the Earth side of the sun. Some very peculiar looking regions, but nothing large and organized. And let's go ahead and take a look at the SDO in motion. And here we do not see, once again guys too, and we're looking at the eastern limb here coming around towards Earth facing. And there is some slight activity over here, but again, doesn't look anything promising to what we've seen in the last few weeks. We'll still keep our eyes on that. The sun remains quiet, and the corona for once actually looks kind of healthy for a change, with very minimal coronal holes except for the northern pole region. Now, also, if you notice in the southern region, at the southern part, the very pole part, we are looking at a reduced coronal hole down there as well. So interesting enough, but it almost looks like we're getting ready to go into autopilot here soon. Take a look at our TSI reading for June 25th, 2018. We were at a 1360.8255. So we have once again tied the highest TSI reading that we've seen in quite some time. Back on June 4th, we also reached this mark as well. So that's twice now we've seen the TSI go to that level. But honestly, since earlier this winter, we saw a reading for a couple of days at 1361, but it dropped back very quickly afterwards. And these two readings are probably the highest that we've seen for 2018. Take a look at some headlines here. Increased eruptive activity at Anak Krakatau volcano here in Indonesia. Now, Rob was talking to me about this yesterday as well. And they're talking about the earthquake that they are now observing, confirmation of a lava flow emerging from the summit area, which is in line with a moderately strong thermal signal detected via the satellites. Observers near the volcano report frequent explosions that generate ash plumes that rise a few hundred meters, as well as a glow from the summit area. Here we have an overhead view from Twitter. And by the way, there's a lot of pictures today on Watchers articles, the ones that I've looked at anyway. I'll leave the links in the descriptions as always, but lots of footage today of what's been going on around the world. There's your, I suppose, your heat signatures. There's the eruption, July 3rd, 2018 at 21:05 local time. The eruption lasted for 30 seconds, producing a column of ash that rose up to about 605 meters. That's about just under 2,000 feet. And that its aviation color code remains at orange. So we will keep you posted on anything else that happens here at this volcano. And taking a look here, record 36,605 lightning strikes in a day. Large hail destroys homes, cars, and crops. France, once again. In just 4 days, July 1st through the 4th, Metro France has registered approximately about 87,000 lightning strikes across the country, which represents more than half of the normal July lightning strikes. And that's in French, and I'm not going to try to read it. Look at this. Absolutely gorgeous photo here. You can almost see the purple in the sky, and the purple represents, that's right folks, highly charged particles. 28 departments were placed on orange alert in a bunch of French cities that I'm not going to attempt to pronounce. Very large hail, up to 2.7 inches in diameter, accompanies the storm, causing major crop damage and also to vehicles and homes. Just a little bit of perspective there. Here's a picture of the storm rolling in Metro France. Very ominous. See if we can check this out real quick. Wow. Whoa. Jeez. I've seen a lot of that. I've seen the lightning strikes from the ground up that makes it look like a tree in the sky. That was in Texas not too long ago. But definitely presence of some highly charged particles, wouldn't you say? Take a look at some hail footage here. Looks like that might hurt. Wow, look at the force this hail is hitting the pavement here. Again, these were up to almost 3 inches in diameter. Record-breaking rainfall threatens much of Japan. 160,000 advised or ordered to evacuate. It says here, a low-pressure system and active rain front brought heavy rain to the wide areas of western and eastern Japan on July 5th, even after a typhoon Pruitt was downgraded to an extratropical cyclone, the JME said on Thursday, July 5th. Now, the Hyogo Prefecture, 3 workers were swept away in a drain at a construction site for industrial area around 9:30 local time Thursday. All of them were rescued, but one of them was later pronounced dead, town officials had reported. Very heavy rain in places record-breaking over the next few days will raise the danger of landslides, flooding, prompting officials to warn people to check for evacuation information from their local governments and move to safe places before conditions get worse. And I was reading through this article here earlier, and they have areas that are getting as much as 15.7 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. Another reading of 13.7 in the Tokai and Shikoku regions. And looks like the Kinki district got around 11.8 inches, and the Kanto Kashin area received 9.8 inches of rain in the Hakuruki-ru region. I love these articles. I really do. We learn something every day. Take a look at Typhoon Maria forms near Guam, heading towards Ryukyu Islands in Japan. We just talked about this area with the other storm we just spoke about here briefly, Paparun. Says here that we had 10-minute sustained winds reach higher than 60 miles an hour. It's a 1-minute sustained wind of 80 miles an hour with gusts up to 80 miles an hour. The minimum barometric pressure, that is, was at 992. Maria dumped heavy rain. This is Typhoon Maria, by the way. 6 inches in some areas on Guam. Produced gusty winds and a minor storm surge as it passed over. The system is still affecting Guam and northern Marine Islands, but conditions are expected to improve by early Friday, July 6th. The storm will continue to intensify over the next couple of days, quite possibly reaching super typhoon, and could come close to the Ryukyu Islands in Japan as early as next week. So here they were dealing with the Paparun storm, and now we are talking about a possible super typhoon heading in that general area, and you see how small these islands are. So you got to feel for these people right now. They've got to be on a little bit of edge. Here is the storm right now, and she is very, 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 very organized. Maria is not looking good. So let's hope for the best, and hopes that this storm somehow takes a turn away at some point. It says Taiwan's Central Weather Bureau, the storm should not have a direct impact. However, if a high-pressure system strengthens, Maria could change its course and lash northern Taiwan by Monday, July 9th. But it's still too early to make an accurate prediction, as Maria's future path could be drastically changed. So, I said it, they're saying it. Let's hope for the best here. Huge storm. Record-breaking rain hits Lahore. I think it's not Lahore, is it?
I know where your mind's going. Let's call it
Lahore. Let's just say it's somewhere in Pakistan, all right? It rained a whole bunch. Heavy monsoon rains described as the worst in decades left 9 people dead, 10 injured in the Pakistani of Lahore, population 6.3 million, on Tuesday, July 3rd, 2018. I'm sorry if it's not pronounced Lahore. It's just coming out that way. I do apologize. The city received record-breaking rain that left much of it underwater and without power. Heavy rains are expected to continue falling across the region over the next 3 days. Residents are urged to heed the official warnings. In other words, don't try to rough it out. If they're saying get out, get out. And look at the size of that sinkhole. Now, a friend of mine sent me a image from Pittsburgh, and they're having this issue as well with sinkholes and flooded streets. And this picture actually reminded me of, well, the picture I saw from Pittsburgh reminded me of the Pakistan picture here. And I told him that, and he said it, climate chaos. That's what's going on right now, in my opinion. I just, we follow weather for so long, and I've always been an amateur at it. I've never remembered this many headlines a week, a day, about torrential rains, and these are shattering records, not just an inch or two over the record. These are 4 times what the record is. Some of these numbers are unprecedented. And when you hear people describing this as the worst in decades, that has been one of the most common headlines that we've seen this year in most of these stories about floods or landslides or sinkholes or anything like that. It says here that they've received about 9.9 inches of rain in just 24 hours on Monday and Tuesday, breaking the previous daily record rainfall set back in 1980. Remember how we heard yesterday where people think that we're going to go back to the standards of the 1980s and early 90s? Floodwaters left many people were stranded in their homes and damaged over 200 electricity feeders across the city, leaving much of it without power. Talking about the city. That sinkhole, by the way, was 200 feet wide and about 20 feet deep. That would not be fun falling down that. Rescue officials said that 6 people, including 2 police officers, had passed away due to electrocution. Another separate incident, 6 people were injured after a roof of a depleted house collapsed. They were transported to a nearby hospital where 3 of them were pronounced dead. Others were in critical condition. This may not be for the faint of heart here, guys. Some of this footage, I'm not going to play that. It does not look too good here for this particular writer. When these flash floods happen, these waters move so fast and everything happens so quickly. And if you're caught off guard, even if you're an experienced swimmer, you could still easily get yourself in trouble big time. So we urge everyone to please pay attention to what your local officials, the warnings, if they say flash flooding, stay indoors, do just that. We are seeing some of the most incredible rain events, and the reason why, and this sounds like a broken record, but Mari was just talking to me today about how we are seeing the most exposure to cosmic rays ever in history. And the reason why we're seeing so much rain is because of the cosmic rays. Look, cosmic rays are highly charged particles. And to form raindrops or snowflakes, you have to have particles in the atmosphere, already natural, man-made, whatever. And then you have, of course, the cosmic rays. They are the steroids for the particles, basically. Make them super strong. And this is an example, just like with Harvey last year. All that rain we saw, again, increased cosmic rays last year. And showing again this year. And we're seeing, I think, anyway, just from doing this show every day, we're seeing widespread flash flooding, feet of water, cars being submerged, sinkholes like this. And like I said, I really feel like that we're seeing this is the result from the increase of cosmic rays that our atmosphere has endured. Look at all the cloud coverage we have. I need to bring up the Mateo map one day just to show you guys how real that is. Solar minimum and ENSO predictions. This is kind of an interesting article. I briefly read it real fast, but I'll read the highlights of this. We look at the particulate and the radiative implications of these termination points. They're talking about the solar cycles, their temporal reoccurrence and signature from the sun to the earth, and show the correlated signature of solar cycle termination events and major oceanic oscillations that extend back many decades. A combined 1-2 punch of reduced particulate forcing and increasing radiative forcing that results from the termination of one solar cycle and rapid blossoming of another correlates strongly with a shift from El Niño to La Niña conditions in the Pacific Ocean. The more information about the death of the solar cycles in La Niña 2020 in the link. As they say, the probability that pattern is due to chance is very low, particularly since the termination of the magnetic activity bands at the equator coincides quite precisely with El Niño La Niña shift. Since the 1960s, the early solar minimum is associated with La Niña conditions. The late solar minimum is associated with El Niño conditions. The rapid increase from minimum to maximum is associated with La Niña conditions again. As the author notes, this pattern did not take place in 1954 minimum, although the rise in activity was also associated with La Niña conditions then. It is unclear why the ENSO system responded differently at the time, but it is clear that solar activity was not the only factor in affecting ENSO. The pattern appears to be repeating again this minimum. The early minimum has been associated to La Niña conditions, and as we move towards the late minimum, which we are now, the El Niño is being forecasted for late 2018. The authors made their claim for a 2020 La Niña before the 2018 El Niño was forecasted. So now a repetition of the pattern looks even more probable, and we should expect a La Niña when solar activity increases in late 2020 to 2021. Now, we are forecasted to start solar cycle 25 sometime in 2019. And what it only means here when it says solar activity increases, once you are down at the bottom of the end of one cycle, once you start the new cycle, you're at the bottom for a little bit and you start to move up again. And like we talked about the other day, how I believe, and I think more and more evidence is coming out, that we probably will see another cycle through 2030, and then that's when solar cycle 26 will, not only will it really be here, I mean, we're going to continue to see conditions plummet towards a grand solar minimum right now. We're still going to see record-breaking sunspot numbers that's lack of in solar cycle 25. They're predicting the 24 was predicted weaker, and 25 is predicted even weaker, and so is 26. I'm sorry, 24 was predicted to be weak. They didn't know it was going to be this weak. 25 is predicted to be weaker than 24. And 24 is already the weakest solar cycle since, what, last 150 years? So from the models I've seen, 26, 27, 28 are super quiet cycles. And you really won't be able to say the word maximum during those cycles. So, yes, we continue to tumble towards a minimum. As we are right now, we are coming to the end of a late minimum here soon. Beginning of solar cycle 25 will be the closure of the late minimum. And like I said here, the solar activity will increase 2020, 2021, according to this study here. After that maximum period is over, which a lot of people are forecasting a very low maximum period in this particular cycle, that's when, once we start heading back down again on sunspot activity, and trust me, it's already going to be low enough, even though it's going to be considered a maximum time. But once we start heading down to the bottom, that's when we should see this deep slumber really kick in as we get closer to 2030. And that's crucial, guys. we have time, but at the same time, we're still going to continue to see the climate act the way it's been acting. The extreme weather all over the world to continue to increase. Okay, this one here, I really felt like was definitely worth mentioning. This talks about all that money that is in that fund, the Green Climate Fund. $7.2 billion of taxpayers' money from various countries is sitting there for the taking for the countries that have participated in the Paris, the Climate Accord. Now, the way it was supposed to work, or the way the world hoped it would work, is that the U.S., Germany, and Japan would always carry the bill, while countries, get this, countries that emit 2/3 of the CO2 in our atmosphere, 2/3 of it now, the countries that emit 2/3 of the CO2, they're not pitching in one penny. Not one dime. But they're getting money if they follow along to this treaty here. But how is that? How is that 2/3 of the countries of the world that are causing the CO2 increase from industry, which is small anyway to the numbers of natural, but when you look at the scheme of things, when you look at how much man has contributed, 2/3 of the countries that put in the most don't even pay a dime into this climate fund. Now it gets interesting. This article is very well written, by the way. Guest post by Willis Eisenbach, and he really breaks this down. He tells us exactly what we're getting here. So here's where he's talking about, yep, that's right. The countries currently emitting 2/3 of the total CO2 aren't putting a penny in to the Green Climate Fund. Not China, not India, not Brazil, not Russia, not a host of countries. Only the lucky few have to pay because history seems to be favored explanation, I guess. It talks about how U.S., Germany, and Japan were the highest. And we're out that money, by the way. There's no getting that money back. We're already out that $7.2 billion that we chipped in. That's gone. We don't get that back. We don't have to worry about spending any more money anymore. But he goes into talking about how the CO2, how all of these things were supposed to help pull back on CO2 and calm the climate down. So let's talk about that real quick. And according to their undoubtedly rosy predictions of CO2 saved by windmills, solar panels, building insulation, and the like, all the projects together that was saved just under 2 gigatons of CO2. 2 billion tons, that's a huge weight of CO2, by the way. But what does all this mean? And here he says, to understand it, let's convert that back to parts million by the volume of CO2, which right now we are at 410. Back in 1750, we were at 278. According to the UN IPCC, that increase in CO2 is claimed to have caused the temperature increase of 2.0787 Celsius. The reason for the number of decimals will become apparent in a moment. Now, to increase the atmospheric CO2 concentration by a 1 part per million volume, you need to emit about 16.8 gigatons of CO2. The Green Climate Fund has avoided the emission of 2 gigatons of CO2. So if their estimates are correct, and if we got all the savings today, instead of 410 parts per million volume, it would make the CO concentration to, stand by, 409.88 parts per million volume. And in turn, this would have make a claim temperature cause of CO2 to be smaller from 2.0787 to 2.0771. That's right, folks. A whole reduction of a 0.0015 Celsius. So for all you haters out there This should be even more proof, too. But for all you Trump haters out there, for him pulling us out of the climate treaty, we were paying billions of dollars to supposedly, and I mean supposedly, lower the global temperature in 1 year by 0.0015 degrees Celsius. I'm ecstatic that we have administration leadership that's smart enough to get out of this money pit that we were paying the bill. Again, Germany, US, Japan, they made up 75% of that $7.2 billion fund, which, by the way, countries like Iran is already threatened, and they're pissing and moaning, and if we don't get our money, we pull out of the climate treaty. They're only in this for the money. That's it. How many of these countries, I bet you that they're flubbing everything too. I bet you some of these countries are fudging the numbers so they get all of their money. It's just like what public schools do in the inner cities. They push all these kids through the high school and they give them all these good grades so they continue to get grant money from the state to continue to operate. I get it. But in this case, the money, well, in both cases, it's taxpayer money. It's not right. It's not right at all because, A, our kids are stupider for it by being just pushed through the system and given a certain grade average versus working their butts off. You know, I'd rather see my kids get C's and B's instead of just some school pushing through it and giving them all A's. I've seen that. And that's kind of like what's going on here with this climate fund. Yeah, let's go ahead and, yeah, we did all that. Yeah, we did that too. Oh, yeah, we reduced all this. Look at that. We saved 15% this year. Isn't that great? Where's our money? Oh, no, we didn't pay anything in that fund, but where's our money? Because remember, we signed this treaty and we get money. It's all about money. Money, 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 money. And, you know, like I said, this guy breaks it down. Perfect picture right there. Scrooge McDuck. And, you know, he says it right here. I love this guy. It's also the fund that was supposed to be given $100 billion so they could parcel it out to corrupt third world politicians and greedy UN rent seekers to swim around for decades. Dream on. That's right. And I think other countries are going to start pulling out of this as well. I heard Australia's next. They've already got a lot of commentary in their news, their media, why Australia should pull out. There's a few other countries that are considering this because here's what's going on. This article, and this guy does a great job. He breaks it down to show you exactly how much billions of dollars of your money actually is affecting the climate, the temperature anyway. It's not, okay? 0.0015 degrees Celsius. It is not affecting temperature. You name one person that can feel the difference, and I'll eat my hat. Nothing on it. I'll just eat it. Raw, wool hat, whatever. I'll eat it. So all this money has been thrown away, and our leaders here in the United States are smart enough to pull us out. Yet we still have people out there who really criticize this country. They don't think for a minute that this administration's seen evidence that shows that CO2 does not warm, that man does not contribute. This is another key piece of evidence that proves once again, and you can't sit here and say there's no science in here. This guy breaks it down. He shows you exactly. He compares it to the parts per million instead of the gigatons. I didn't know what a gigaton really was until tonight. What were you saying?
I said, please don't eat your hat. I don't want you to eat your hat, Jake.
Well,
that sounds gross.
I don't want to eat my hat either,
Please.
but I will. And if you know anybody, and you know, really can tell me, hey, what I'll do is I'll get a thermometer. I'll put you in a room, and I'll turn the temperature down 0.0015 degrees Celsius, and you let me know. And if you do notice the temperature, you say, hey, I noticed it, then I'll eat my hat. Again, waste of money. Thank you, Donald Trump, for pulling us out of the Paris Treaty the climate agreement, whatever it is, let's look. The reason why this is there is because people like Al Gore have made hundreds of millions of dollars off of this scam, and now it's catching on worldwide. Oh, there's Alfred. Hi, Alfred. So, I wanted to bring this up because this is the joke of the day, I guess. He says, quote, "I think Pope Francis is quite an inspiring figure, really. A phenomena. I've been startled with the clarity of the moral forces that he embodies. He kind of raises a new context the old question, is the Pope Catholic?" That was a joke, by the way.
You sound like Mr. Garrison.
Oh. I got sharp pains in my forehead right now. It does, like brain freeze. The fact that this person continues to ramble on in public. And he's a Southern Baptist, by the way, and he's actually been quoted saying, "Well, I've said publicly the last year, I was raised in Southern Baptist tradition. I could become Catholic based on this Pope. He is that inspiring to me." No, wrong. Wrong. Pope is out there telling everybody that man is creating global warming. And shame on Donald Trump. He's an evil, nasty Satan worker. And he pulled us out of that climate because Trump doesn't care about the climate. He doesn't care about the environment. He's evil. And so Gore loves that. Yeah, he's inspiring. I bet he is. And I know the vast majority of my Catholic friends are just thrilled to the marrow of their bones that he is providing this kind of spiritual leadership. Give me a break. Don't get me started about the Catholic religion, all right? I think there's good people in it. I think the people that preach it are the ones that are the problems. I'm sorry. I know this kind of a topic is taboo and we don't like to bring it up, but to me, when I see the Pope and others in that religion accusing Mr. Trump of being evil, it's them that I look at are the evil. Especially lying to the world. The Pope. No wonder so many people listen to mainstream media. When you have such good actors out there, when you have such good puppet masters, basically, because their strings are being pulled by people we don't ever see. It's like that on both sides. I'm not saying one side's better than the other. They're both like that. I watched an interview one time where they had Rick Perry on, and he's supposed to be against man-made global warming. But when he talked about what he stood for, it didn't sound like he understood either. And it definitely didn't sound like anything about cooling. He was talking about clean energy and this and that. And, well, he was almost on the side of the global warming. So, really, most of these politicians don't have the capability to understand some of this stuff. They go off of what everybody tells them. But some of these smaller time politicians will actually take the time to listen to some of these scientists that are PhDs, and they're doing these new studies, and they're saying, hey, old timers, we've got some new information. We need to show you guys this because you both look bad, both sides. I think some of the old leadership doesn't have a good grasp of what's really happening in the climate, and I think the reason why we're seeing the stuff that we talk about here being exposed to this administration is because the new blood also is going to find the new research. And thank you. We are alive in some amazing times right now, and I mentioned this the other day with the Supreme Court justice being replaced. That will be the decision there will reverse a judgment, Massachusetts versus the EPA, 2007. It was ruled back then that CO2 was a pollutant on a 5-4 vote on the Supreme Court. What do you think it's going to be now? They're going to overrule that. It's going to be overturned. Trust me. And what will happen then? When CO2 will be formally recognized as the greening mechanism that it is. People will get on board or they're going to get ditched. And then the real truth will finally come out about CO2. And then the warmists will somehow tie, well, we told you CO2 did something to the climate and it's cooling. We prove it now. It's cooling the climate. So we were right. CO2 is the climate driver. No, I'm going to catch you on that one too. I'm pulling that card right now so you can't say that. Not going to happen. And, the garbage, even the UN, we have representatives here. Here we have a Patricia Espinoza. In quotes, if we truly want to make a fundamental transformative changes necessary to combat climate change, perhaps what we need then is not a physical arc, but an arc of ambition for climate action, Espinoza tweeted on the 4th of July. It's probably after a few Budweisers. Now, Climate Depot's Mark Morano of Climate Skeptic responded to her tweet saying, what if we don't want to make your suggested fundamental transformative changes necessary to combat climate change? So sad that the Vatican once again hosting the UN anti-human solutions to global warming. Couldn't have said it better there, Mark. Couldn't have said it better. But she goes on, I want to be, let's see here. I want to begin by discussing a narrative that is common to many cultures and faith communities throughout the world, the story of the Great Flood that took place long ago, probably because of increased cosmic rays. I'm going to go ahead and bet the farm on that one. She goes on and on and on and on. Climate change and our response to it raises larger questions about who we are, why are we here, and where are we collectively going. Climate change is about morality. Yeah, that's it. I mean, that makes sense because the morals have gone out the window, so has the climate. So if that were true, I guess that's one correlation there, I guess. Climate change is about morality. Who are we and to willing to destroy the ancient and intricate beauty of the world? Climate change is about legacy. Who we are to leave a debt of neglect to an unborn generation. That's funny. You have something to do with that, by the way, Miss Espinoza. Leaving an unborn generation with debt and neglect. She goes on to stand on our soapbox. We must significantly accelerate global climate ambition before 2020. Why? What's going to happen on 2020? Talk about fear porn. I'm telling you, man, the UN, awesome stuff there. The Paris Agreement is the product of such unity. No, it's not. It's called give me your money, taxpayers. Here you go, governments. Here's all that money for doing what you were supposed to do anyway. But you can thank the taxpayers of all these countries. Don't worry about what you spend it on. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing and we'll cool 0.0015 degrees Celsius every year. And maybe, just maybe, I mean, if that's the case, I mean, what, we're looking at 2100 before we actually get to baseline? Is that what I'm sorry. This is horse manure. Now I see why there's so much changes. People are really lashing out at our leadership. Our leadership has taken us out of stupid situations. The whole talk about wanting to pull out of NATO and everything. I get it. I don't stand with a lot of these countries out there and their political beliefs. Some of them are on top of this. Some of them are out there actually trying to get solutions to the changing climate right there. I've heard good things from China. They're trying to get ready for a period of time where they know that they've lost a large amount of crop, large amount of population. Their government's taking the proper steps. I've heard good things about Russia, how their governments are taking proper steps. They're breaking away from some of the norm here. And if you go with this Paris climate treaty, you're going with the same game book, the same game plan that's already been out there, that's already failed. It has no significance at all to the climate. This is just another way. So we're not getting robbed here just in the United States. We're getting robbed worldwide. Everybody, every country out there. If you pay taxes over the last 10 years or whatever many years this has been going on for this fund, the last 2 or 3 years, I think 15 is when they signed this. So the last 3 years, you've been paying your tax dollars has gone into this piggy bank for these countries' governments to get. The governments get this money. Now, I'm sure that they encourage the governments to invest back to its people, but when you're handing a country that's corrupt, third world-like country, millions of dollars, and what if they fudge the numbers to get that money? I'm pretty sure those people are not trying to do the best intentions with that money. And that's the other problem. Forget about the fact that our climate's not affected. To me, this is not results. 0.0015 degrees Celsius. That's not results. That's not worth billions of dollars. And finally, I'm sad to report about this because Pruitt got the ball rolling here. Mr. Trump says that he has accepted the resignation of Scott Pruitt as the administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency. I can't talk. I'm pissed. Within the agency, Scott has done an outstanding job, and I will always be thankful to him for this. The Senate confirmed Deputy EPA Andrew Wheeler. I'll get to that just in a second. But here's where I'm at with this. He says, Mr. President, it has been an honor to serve you in the cabinet as administrator of the EPA. Truly, your confidence in me has blessed me personally and enabled me to advance your agenda beyond what anyone anticipated at the beginning of your administration. Your courage, steadfast, and resolute commitment to get results for the American people, which that's what he's doing right now, folks, both with regard to improved environmental outcomes as well as historical regulatory reform. That's huge, by the way, is in fact occurring at an unprecedented pace, and I thank you for the opportunity to serve you and the American people in helping achieve those ends. That is why it's hard for me to advise you. I am stepping down as administrator of the EPA effective July 6th. It is extremely difficult for me to see serving you in this role, first because I count it a blessing to be serving you in any capacity, but also because of the transformative work that is occurring. However, the unrelenting attacks on me personally, my family, are unprecedented, and I have taken a sizable toll on us. And that, my friends, is what I'm upset about. Is that, unfortunately, the ignorance of millions of people has forced out a good guy. A person who was just trying to serve his country, to end the nonsense that the EPA was performing. That's why our energy costs are so high, thanks to the EPA and these new ideas they have to save us from warming a whole 0.0015 degrees Celsius. This guy was nitpicked. He was accused of giving his advisors and aides raises. He got promoted to the EPA director. Sure. You all get raises. Hey, great work, people. Thanks. Created more jobs? Well, he's the administrator of the EPA. He's got to have more aid, I guess, right? But that's bad. He's abusing your tax dollars. But yet, no one gets mad at Obama, who put us in a position that was wasting millions of our tax dollars. So Pruitt was trying to help save money. He also did save money by changing some of it. And he's right. This work is happening at a fast pace, faster than anybody expected. And just like that girl, and by the way, I want to make a correction. That was not a waitress, so sorry for calling her a snowflake waitress. She was just a snowflake customer. Oh, by the way, guys, she is a private teacher. So good to know that we have someone who shows so much ignorance teaching our youth in private schools, which, by the way, parents pay a little bit more money. Oh, that's right. They pay a lot more money to make sure their children get the best education possible. Huh. Gotta love that. So, she wanted him to step down immediately. Well, guess what, sweet cheeks? He listened to what you recommended, thanks to you and your snowflake friends. But guess what? You guys better be shaking in your boots, because this article, these people are like, oh my God, not Andrew Wheeler. And it's funny because Scott Pruitt's long record of misdeeds and all this crap about him, abusing his power with his numerous scandals making headlines, cost him his job as head EPA, still an open question. Trump has been tweeting support of this guy. Sure, he's doing what he's supposed to do. They're getting rid of this junk science that we had before. Meanwhile, there's another big EPA story that's deserving our attention, but getting far less of it. That's right, because people are so caught up, they don't do their research. The guy that's taking Scott Pruitt's job, oh, wow. You're going to love this. And they say it right here. While it may be impossible to imagine any worse than Pruitt to lead our nation's environmental policy, oh, yeah. It got way worse for you folks. So who is this Mr. Andrew Wheeler? Let's see. His most recent job was an energy lobbyist. His biggest clients included Murray Energy Corporation, which proudly bills itself as the largest coal mining company in America. The largest coal mining company in America. That was his last position. Lobbying companies that one client is the largest coal mining company in America. Now, Robert E. Murray, by the way, the CEO, vigorously fought the Obama administration's attempts to reduce carbon emissions and strengthen environmental and public health laws. Shortly after Trump took office, Murray, an unabashed climate denier, unabashed climate denier. It's almost like this article is make sure, folks, that we include he hasn't been bashed enough for being a climate denier, so let's get that going on him too, guys. Maxine Waters is inciting violence. This article is now trying to incite harassment to Andrew Wheeler. He hasn't even technically started. Tomorrow's his first day. And yet this article, I think it was written on the 2nd. And then we got this Vice President Mike Pence with the ridiculously pro-coal action plan that called for doing away with the Clean Power Plan, withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement, eliminating federal tax credits for renewable energy. Jeez. No, they're mad because their piggy bank is gone. In his spare time, Wheeler serves as the vice president of the Washington Coal Club. God bless you, Andrew. Powerful yet little-known federation of more than 300 coal workers, producers, lawmakers, business leaders, and policy experts who have dedicated themselves to preserving the uncertain future of our dirtiest fossil fuel. It's so dirty. Wheeler clearly loves coal, but he also made time to lobby the U.S. Department of Interior to open portions of Bears Ears National Monument to uranium mining. Yeah, God forbid. We're looking for alternative sources here. Sorry. It gets worse, he says here in this article. Before joining his K Street lobbying firm, Wheeler worked as legislative to Oklahoma Senator Jim Inhofe. Oh no, not Jim Inhofe. That's right, folks. Mr. Inhofe is without question the most virulent, is that what it is? Virulent? But he is the most, whatever that is, climate denier on Capitol Hill. A man who regularly refers to science of climate change as the greatest hoax. Guess what? That's because it is the greatest hoax. Just wanted to clue you in on a little secret. This is the problem. And then okay, educating school children the basics of climate science was tantamount to brainwashing. It is. Educating school children on the basics of climate, of science, is like brainwashing because the curriculum in our public schools think CO2 warms the planet. They also think that the sun has nothing to do with the climate, that it's a very small part. Because it's 93 million miles away, it can't have that big of an effect. Come on, guys. It's 93 million miles away. I'm sorry. I'm being a little ornery tonight because I love it. I hate that Scott's gone. Scott did a good job. He got picked on. This was a witch hunt from day one. You got what you want, snowflakes, but guess what? We're bringing in King Cole here. All right? So, are you going to go harass this guy now and say, oh, you're one of the lobbyists. You don't care about the environment. I'll tell you something. I don't know how many more papers I've got to share on this channel about how CO2 is benefactor to our planet. About how plant life with more nitrogen present in the atmosphere and in our bedrock absorbs more CO2. So bring it. That's what plant life says. Over and over and over and over again, we continue to show you guys how we've been lied to for 30 years now about the truth of CO2 and what it actually does to this planet. And yet we get called climate deniers. And why is that? It's because so many... Look, you hear this all the time. Well, so many people agree. It can't be wrong, can it? Yes, it can be. It is. We've never been alive for what's happening. This generation, this technology era, we've never seen what we're seeing right now. And, you know, the climate alarmists who have made these outlandish predictions, they are getting a brief... They're getting a brief, what do you call it? See, I told you so. See, I told you so. Here we go. The global warming, guys. All this, I predicted it by the 13s, the 18s, the 20s. I predicted it. So what are they going to say this winter, next winter, the winter after that? Historic numbers. Record cold. More cold deaths than ever. Record crop failure. Some countries might actually have to really think about what they're going to do about a food shortage. What are they going to do then? Because keep saying that global warming is causing global cooling now. That's not what you've been telling. Your narrative has been, we're going to continue to warm. You keep calling this a planet that it's warming. It's continuing warming. But it's not. And we continue to show and present articles that are being written. Very intelligent, very common sense, logic people. They're not stupid. Every article that I brought to you tonight, again, has several links to the information and breaks it down beautifully, especially the one about the Green Climate Fund, on how much we're actually saving if everybody does what they're supposed to do, which, by the way, we actually, CO2 is actually increased by 1.3% in the first year. So those are all if everybody did what they're supposed to. That's what they would save us. So what do you do when the countries, most of them do what they're supposed to do and they still get money for it, but yet we increase the CO2 emissions? But yet we see cooling. What are they going to start backing that answer up with? I'm glad to be a part of this movement, guys. Part of it's, yeah, kind of nice to say, I told you so. But the other part of it is that it just shows you that if you think outside the box and be a little more open-minded and take a look at information that's being presented over and over now, and more PhD scientists, more papers being released, we're seeing the opposite of what we've heard from these Hollywood actors that are calling themselves climatologists or predictors, prophets of global warming. While I was going through this rant, guys, looking at the sun and checking out a really chain of events here, let's take a look at this. I didn't see this earlier. Watch this little pulse right here. And then if you look back here, right after that pulse, you'll see some action that kind of goes along with that little pulse. Watch. Interesting. And that corona hole opened up briefly after that little explosion and then closed back up just as quick as it opened up. I love this stuff. I can't get enough of it. All right, let's take a quick look at our nation temperatures because it's hot. as of 9 p.m. tonight, before we went on the air, this is what we're looking at. Extreme heat in the southwest. Northwest corner, you're seeing cooler weather than usual. It's getting hot. You will warm up. Northeast, stick around. We are about to get a little bit of relief. Here is our national radar. And we do have showers and thunderstorms moving into the western New York area that will bring in some much cooler air, less humid air. Meanwhile, we still have rainfall in the Texas area, the Houston area. They've had tons. I need to follow up on that story, actually. I've been doing so many stories about other countries. I need to start getting a little bit more U.S. Stats here, because I know we've had lots of rain down in Texas, and it's not being talked about. We're looking at some showers down here in Florida. Just kind of hovering over there, sticking around. And that's been kind of the story. There's certain low pressure systems that almost just appear to just stay stationary for a long period of time. And that's causing, like in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh, they have a little weather system. It's kind of just stayed put on the border of Ohio and Pennsylvania all night, literally. And on really another note here too, I wanted to show this, and I'll go ahead and check in with Mari. On a positive note, imagine this: the North Atlantic, very minorly, was close to -1 below baseline. Today, inch back up to -0.903, and also a bit of good news for summer anyway. The water's actually all trended upward today. Everything warmed up. I mean, it's only July, except for this one. This one kind of declined just a little bit, the East Tropical Atlantic. But everybody else today saw some increase in the temperatures in the Atlantic Ocean. Now, as I just showed you guys, most of these temperatures are still below baseline, except for the South Tropical Atlantic. Everybody else, and the Gulf of Mexico. But the Gulf of Mexico, I'm surprised it's not a little bit warmer, but it is starting to get its act together. It is July out there. That's where we start to see the hotter values and the perfect ingredients for hurricanes. So 2 out of the 5 charts I showed you today were above baseline, and all 5, except for, 4 out of 5 actually increased in temperatures. So it is July 5th. So we should see something like that, I guess. Mari, how's everything going tonight? I assume everybody's behaving themselves like always.
Your little voice over and voice acting when you're reading these articles, Jake, I think has everyone just sort of rolling in the chat. You're very amusing and fun to listen to.
I'm riled up tonight. I'm ornery about what's happened. I love it that at first I got mad when I saw Pruitt resigned, and then I read about who his replacement was, and I just got a shit-eating grin on my face after I got done reading the paragraph, because Andrew Wheeler is even a bigger proponent of so-called fossil fuel, and that kind of just excited me. So I kind of wanted to rub it in tonight, like, haha, be careful what you wish for, snowflakes.
So, and you have some people in here that are following climate change, and they're trying to learn what's going on, trying to decide on different sides. And, with the political aspect, it is hard for people to swallow Trump. It is, for a lot of people, hard to swallow Trump, but at the same time, we have a lot of Trump supporters as well. So, just be respectful to one another, and in the end, we just have to zoom out and be objective and look at the facts and data that are coming across that we are showing on our channel when it comes to this particular topic. There's a lot of, racial tension with Trump and all that. We don't deal with that here on our channel. We're following the climate, the science, the weather, the temps, the stats. We were talking about cosmic rays. Remember that chart I tweeted out earlier, Jake? We should put that up, but I put a link in the chat for people to reference.
Well, I do apologize if I offended some people in the political part of this. I really don't have anything against if you're Democratic or if you don't like Trump. I get it. I don't blame people that hate him either, because I really think the media does a nasty job at perceiving him as I mean, think about it. When you've got 90% of the people talking about somebody in a certain way, it's kind of hard not to see the positive. And I get that. So I don't blame the folks in there that don't like Trump, that don't really agree with him. I understand that part of it too. I do. But I also think that a lot of it is misguided media talk. And if there is ever a way that we could just try to find a way to take the blinders off, and maybe that's the only reason why I mentioned the politics part of it, is because we all need to learn how to listen to both sides of it, not just our side and our side only. You know, just like people that we try to have communications with that are on the global warming side. I can't tell you how many times that Mari has clued me in on a discussion where she's being insulted personally because she's providing information that totally goes against global warmists. And I know that there's global cooling people who harass global warmists. I'm not saying one's right and the other's wrong, but Mari's right. We need to be respectful to each other, and we need to try to figure out what's going on, and we better figure it out quick, because fighting about it is counterproductive.
Well, I feel a lot of the bickering you see on social media, it's gotten so out of hand. I've lost friends for things I've shared. I have strong views on certain things, and there's a lot of people, instead of debating things like why do you feel that way and empathizing and hearing it, like talking it out, there is a very emotional reaction, and a lot of people's emotional reactions are not stemmed from good judgment, or even they haven't taken the time to look at the facts and the data before they have created this emotional reaction. And that's, you know, a crazy thing to witness, especially with the topic we're dealing with, is that instant emotional reaction from some people. And then you try to show them the facts, and then you are attacked with ad hominem. I was talking to people about that in the chat because, as you know, Jake, I have been sort of winding people up in climate change discussion groups on Facebook, you know, for awareness sake of GSM.
Well, like I said, you know, people are going to learn the hard way. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you do share our videos, just tell the people who don't agree with what we say, global cools anyway, say, look, don't even listen to this guy. If you don't want to listen to this guy, fine. Don't even listen to this guy that's talking. Just go to these articles that he's got in the links in the description. At least direct them to the links in our description box, because at least there they can listen to they can read the articles themselves without hearing me giving my colorful analyst of what I think. And I guess the only reason why I do that is because I don't feel like the message is getting out there to some people. And maybe there might be something I say that really connects, and that gets shared. And that's what I'm hoping for, is that there's something that gets through to people who might have been on the fence before, and they finally get our frustration. They finally get why people like me and others in this community, there's other channels that rant on as well, and rightfully so. We feel like that we're not reaching enough people. And I know we're being censored on certain platforms. I know we have lots of subscribers, and the view counts do not represent that. A lot of people write us on a daily basis telling us that they don't get notifications for any of our videos anymore on YouTube. Some of them are actually unsubscribed from the channel, and they haven't even done that. So, to me, you know, I really feel like that's because we're actually telling the truth, and maybe YouTube's advertisers don't like that. Maybe some of the way they make their money is based on the global warming lie, and channels like us are really going to derail that money gravy train that's going around. It's drying up big time. It's drying up. I've seen it right now, and hopefully other countries in this world get smart and get out of this climate treaty. It's a joke. It's a joke. But anyway, I do appreciate for those who did tune in tonight, who are on the fence, who are trying to learn, who are trying to figure out. Again, I'm not like this all the time, but there's certain things that just wind me up as well. And I love it when a situation like with the Pruitt, where someone demanded he resign, and he did, and then look who they brought in. So just be careful what you wish for, people. That's all I gotta say on that. And thanks again for everyone tuning in, being patient through this long broadcast. I had a lot to talk about. I wanted to share my thoughts about what we had saw tonight on our articles as well with Pruitt leaving. Again, I hope you found something informative about the video. Please like and share and subscribe. We will talk soon, guys. Take care.